What happens when an unstoppable alien force meets the one species that refuses to die? Can humanity defy the impossible and become the 1% that survives? It began with a whisper from deep space, a signal too distant to matter. Astronomers at first thought it was cosmic noise, a random flicker among the stars. But within days, the truth became clear. Earth was not alone. And what was coming was not a friendly hello. The Zaryth didn't come with warnings or demands. They arrived in silence, an armada of sleek, obsidian ships descending through the atmosphere like predators stalking wounded prey. The world had never seen anything like it. Day one was the end of normal life. Entire cities crumbled beneath weapons that didn't make a sound, beams of dark energy that erased matter as if it had never existed. Skyscrapers dissolved, tanks melted to ash, and the military defenses of major nations fell in mere hours. Humanity's most advanced technologies, missiles, jets, even nuclear weapons, were as useful as throwing pebbles at a hurricane. 7 billion people watched in horror as their governments went silent one by one. High-ranking officials and world leaders vanished, communications cut off without warning. Panic spread faster than the invaders themselves. "This isn't war," whispered a soldier stationed in what remained of New York City. "It's extermination." The Zaryth were unlike anything humanity had imagined. Their ships glided through Earth's skies like shadows, untouchable and relentless. Their soldiers, clad in shimmering black armor, moved with perfect precision, leaving no survivors in their wake. Each one was faster, stronger, and more intelligent than any human. But what truly terrified everyone wasn't just their technology. It was their cold, methodical cruelty. They didn't kill out of hatred. They killed out of efficiency. In the ruins of Paris, Commander Ria Delacourt watched helplessly as the remnants of her battalion were cut down in minutes. She had fought in wars before, but this wasn't war. It was a massacre. Every strategy her team had tried, ambushes, sabotage, even suicide missions, had failed. The Zaryth anticipated every move. They knew humanity better than we knew ourselves. Broadcasts from across the globe echoed the same grim reality. Everywhere we were losing. By the end of the first week, 60% of the world's population was either dead or missing. Entire cities became graveyards, littered with the remains of people who had tried to run or fight back. The survivors clung to whatever shelter they could find. Abandoned subway tunnels, mountain caves, even the flooded ruins of old bunkers. Hope was a word whispered by the foolish. And yet, amidst the devastation, humanity refused to give up. The Zaryth had seen it before, species struggling against the inevitable. They had visited over 9,000 worlds across the galaxy, and on each one, they had encountered the same story. Some species tried to bargain, others fought bravely, and a few even attempted to flee. None survived. Their calculations, carried out with unflinching precision, predicted that 99% of civilizations fell within the first contact phase. And the rare 1% that held out a little longer, they were crushed soon after, their efforts rendered meaningless in the face of Zaryth superiority. Humanity, the Zaryth thought, would be no different. Another species doomed to extinction. Another footnote in their conquests. They did not understand us. Not why that as the days stretched into weeks, and the world burned under alien rule. Something strange began to happen. The Zaryth expected humanity to break, but instead humanity adapted. In the ashes of our greatest cities, pockets of resistance began to form. "We can't fight them head-on," Ria Delacourt told her ragged crew, huddled deep within the ruins of an underground shelter. "But we can make them bleed." The survivors stopped thinking in terms of armies and battles. There were no front lines anymore, only opportunities to disrupt and delay. Across the globe, engineers, hackers, and rogue scientists began building makeshift weapons out of alien wreckage. Farmers turned old tractors into armored vehicles. Civilians hacked drones to spy on enemy patrols. Anyone with knowledge of chemistry turned everyday materials into explosives. Ordinary people became soldiers, driven by the simple truth. We are not dead yet. Ria knew the odds were stacked against them. Hope was a lie, but survival wasn't. If they could delay the Zaryth, harass them, sabotage their operations, make them pay for every inch of land. They could buy time for something, anything, to change. The Zaryth thrived on order. Every movement, every assault was calculated, precise, and devoid of emotion. But humanity, we were chaos incarnate. When entire platoons of Zaryth troops marched into urban zones, they were met with traps, improvised bombs, and unpredictable ambushes. In the wilderness, Zaryth scouts found themselves stalked and hunted by humans who had grown savage, relentless, and fearless in the face of death. "We're not fighting for victory," Rhea said grimly after an ambush destroyed a Zaryth supply caravan. "We're fighting to make them regret ever coming here." And it was working. Slowly, cracks began to appear in the Zaryth's perfect strategies. They were not prepared for a species that could fight without logic, that could destroy its own infrastructure just to deny the enemy a foothold, that refused to surrender even when it made no sense to keep going. Every defeat fueled humanity's defiance, making the survivors more dangerous with each passing day. Weeks turned into months. The Zaryth, for the first time in their long history, found themselves off balance. Their carefully crafted invasion schedules were thrown into disarray. Their losses, though small, began to accumulate. And most disturbingly, their soldiers reported that human morale was rising. "How?" one Zaryth commander hissed in frustration, staring at a holographic display of Earth. "They have no reinforcements, no resources. Why won't they fall?" The answer was simple: because we are human, and we don't know how to quit. It wasn't a grand victory that shifted the course of the invasion. It was a small, desperate act of defiance. In the ruins of a forgotten city, a group of survivors managed to hijack a Zaryth communications beacon. For the first time, they broadcast a message not to their fellow humans, but to the Zaryth themselves. The message was short, but it carried the weight of every human heart still beating on Earth. "You want us gone? Come and take us." The Zaryth commanders were stunned. They had conquered entire galaxies, but never had they encountered a species that dared to taunt them in the face of annihilation. And in that moment, the balance shifted. The Zaryth realized the terrible truth. This war would not end quickly. Humanity would fight to the last breath, the last bullet, the last spark. And even then, we wouldn't stop. They had come expecting submission. Instead, they had found something far more dangerous. They had found us. The Zaryth had thought humanity would be another number in their records, another species to be crushed beneath their might. They were wrong. This was just the beginning. The war that began as an unstoppable invasion had morphed into something the Zaryth had never experienced before. A grueling nightmare without end. What should have been a swift campaign was now a long, chaotic war of attrition. And the longer it dragged on, the more humanity became something new. Something the Zaryth could not understand. They had conquered thousands of species, but not a single one fought like this. Not a single one refused to die quietly the first winter after the invasion arrived with brutal cold. Yet the Zaryth, unaffected by Earth's climate, marched across the frozen ruins, expecting resistance to wither. Instead, it grew fiercer. As supply lines stretched thin, ambushes became deadlier. Makeshift bombs, rigged by civilians using nothing but scavenged materials, tore through the Zaryth patrols. Bridges were blown, tunnels collapsed, and power grids short-circuited, all to deny the invaders any advantage. Meanwhile, the survivors became predators. Rhea Delacourt's network of scattered cells had grown into a coordinated resistance. Hunters learned to stalk the Zaryth silently, slashing at their ranks in small skirmishes before melting into the wilderness. Each strike wasn't just a tactical victory, it was psychological warfare. "Let them feel hunted," Rhea whispered over the radio, as another ambush left a Zaryth platoon in pieces. "Let them fear the dark." And they did. For the first time in centuries, the Zaryth feared, but humanity's ingenuity came with a price. Resources were running low. Even stolen alien tech couldn't feed the starving or heal the wounded. The resistance knew that time was against them. Every day without a decisive blow against the Zaryth was another step closer to extinction. It was in this bleak moment that Dr. Elon Mathers, one of Earth's last remaining scientists, proposed an insane plan: hijack a Zaryth mothership. This isn't just suicide, One commander said when the plan was unveiled. It's suicide on a galactic scale, but Rhea Delacourt only smiled grimly. Good. They'll never see it coming. The idea was brutally simple. A small team would infiltrate one of the alien motherships, plant explosives deep in its core, and force the entire fleet to retreat before the blast took out half the planet's orbit. If it worked, it would cripple the Zaryth invasion. If it failed, well, they were dead anyway. In the dead of night, under the cover of a blinding snowstorm, a small group of human soldiers and engineers approached a landed Zaryth mothership. The ship stood like a towering monolith, humming with alien energy, its surface smooth and cold as obsidian. Rhea led the mission herself. There was no room for mistakes. Every step inside the alien behemoth felt like walking through the belly of a beast, with the walls pulsing faintly with unfamiliar technology. The team moved with silent precision, disabling sentries, hacking systems, and planting charges at critical points deep within the structure. But time was running out. The Zaryth would eventually notice the intrusion, and when they did, escape would be impossible. Almost there, whispered Mathers as he connected the final explosive. The timer began ticking down. 15 minutes until detonation. Everyone out, Rhea ordered. But before they could retreat, an alarm blared. A shrill, bone-chilling sound that echoed through the corridors. They know, Rhea growled. Run. What followed was a chaotic sprint for survival. The halls of the alien ship came alive with soldiers, armored Zaryth, swift and merciless. Lasers burned through the air, illuminating the dark passageways in blinding bursts. Rhea and her team fought as they ran, improvising every step of the way. Grenades crafted from stolen alien cores lit up the halls in fiery explosions, forcing the Zaryth into temporary retreat. Every second counted. We're not going to make it, someone shouted. We'll make it, Rhea barked back, refusing to entertain failure. Just keep moving. With only 2 minutes left, the team burst through the docking bay, only to find their extraction shuttle engulfed in flames, wrecked by Zaryth interceptors. There was no time for panic. No time to think. Steal one of theirs, Rhea ordered, pointing to an alien transport nearby. Or die right here. Without hesitation, they sprinted toward the enemy craft. Bullets and lasers filled the air, but they kept going, dodging, diving, and returning fire. By some miracle or perhaps sheer human stubbornness, they stormed the ship, hacked the controls, and launched into the night sky. As they blasted away from the mothership, the countdown reached 0. The explosion lit up the heavens, a blinding supernova of fire and metal, consuming the massive vessel in an instant. The shockwave sent their stolen ship spinning, but Rhea held the controls steady. They had done it. Behind them, the sky burned with the wreckage of the alien mothership. For the first time, the Zaryth had been dealt a crippling blow. News of the victory spread like wildfire. Across the globe, survivors heard the impossible. A human team had destroyed a Zaryth mothership. The Zaryth fleet, reeling from the loss, began pulling back. It wasn't a retreat, not yet. But for the first time, they hesitated. And in war, hesitation is death. Humanity seized the moment. Coordinated attacks struck at key Zaryth outposts and supply chains. Factories hidden deep underground churned out improvised weapons, drones, and makeshift armor. What was once a scattered resistance became an organized, merciless force. The Zaryth, who had never known failure, now knew fear. The Zaryth commanders, realizing they could no longer control the battlefield, sent an urgent message to the humans. We yield, but humanity had tasted something stronger than fear, victory. Rhea Delacourt stared at the message, her expression cold and unreadable. She knew what the Zaryth wanted. To cut their losses, retreat to the stars, and return another day when Earth was weaker. She leaned over the cracked console and typed a single response. We don't. The war didn't end with a peace treaty. It ended with fire and fury. Humanity gave the Zaryth one final gift. A relentless onslaught. Every retreating ship was hunted down. Every trace of the invasion wiped from the Earth. The message was clear. Never come back. By the time the last Zaryth vessel vanished beyond the stars, Earth was scarred and broken. But it was still ours. In the aftermath of the invasion, humanity rebuilt. not just their cities, but themselves. The Zaryth technology, once a symbol of fear, now became the foundation of a new future. And as the first human ships launched into the depths of space, there was no more fear, only determination. For the first time, the galaxy belonged to us. And somewhere, light years away, the Zaryth whispered a warning to the stars. Do not return to Earth. The humans are the 1%, and they do not forgive.